All right, welcome back to the deep dive. You know how this works. You give us the topics you're really wrestling with, those things you want to understand better, and we take a deep dive into the material and try to boil it all down.
Exactly. Cut through all the noise and get to what really matters,
Mhm.
the insights you can actually use.
And today, we're tackling something pretty big. You've sent us a ton of stuff on leadership. What makes someone a truly memorable leader? We're going to use this book, Unlock Your Leadership Story, as our main guide here. It uses all these classic fables and folktales to make its points about leadership, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach. And I think what we're going to try to do in this deep dive is see how it all connects to this idea of personal stories, like how the stories we tell about ourselves and the way we connect with others really forms the heart of effective leadership.
Yeah, the whole authenticity piece, because
Right.
it's not just about barking orders or having some
Wow.
fancy title, right? There's so much more to it.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the first things that really jumps out from this material is this emphasis on storytelling. The
Yeah.
idea that leadership is, at its core, about the stories we tell and the stories we share.
Okay, so storytelling. I can see how that plays a role, but break that down for me a bit more. How does that actually work in a leadership context?
Well, think about it this way. When a leader shares their own personal story, their values, the struggles they faced, the moments where they maybe even failed but then ultimately learned and grew from those experiences, it makes them more human. It builds trust.
Okay, I get that. People relate to stories, to that human element. But is it really that simple? Just tell a few good stories and you're suddenly a great leader.
Oh, definitely not. It's not about just rattling off anecdotes. It's about using those stories to connect with people on a deeper level, to inspire them, to motivate them, to create a shared sense of purpose. Like we're all in this together kind of feeling.
Right, that makes sense. So stories create that bridge between the leader and the people they're leading.
That's a great way to put it. A bridge built on authenticity and shared experience.
Mm.
And it's powerful stuff. Okay, so we've got this idea that stories are really important. Now let's dive into some of those fables. The first one that Unlock Your Leadership Story uses is The Blind Men and the Elephant. I think pretty much everyone's heard that one, right?
Yeah, I remember it from elementary school. Six blind men, each feeling a different part of an elephant, and they all come up with completely different ideas of what an elephant is.
Exactly. One guy feels the trunk and thinks it's a snake, another feels a leg and thinks it's a tree trunk, and so on. They're all right, in a way, based on their limited experience,
Mm.
but they're also all wrong because they're missing the bigger picture.
So what's the leadership lesson there? Don't be blind.
Well, kind of. It's about recognizing that we all have our own limited perspectives, right? And if we don't make an effort to understand those other viewpoints, we're only seeing a small part of the whole picture, which can lead to bad decisions, misunderstandings, all sorts of problems.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm already thinking about how this applies to work. Like, different departments, each focused on their own little piece of the puzzle, sometimes forgetting how it all fits together.
Right, exactly. Or think about parenting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get so caught up in like making sure your kid eats their vegetables and does their homework that you forget to just, connect with them on an emotional level, see things from their point of view.
Yeah, good point. So it's about consciously seeking out those different perspectives,
Yeah.
not just assuming we have all the answers, which, let's face it, is hard to do sometimes.
It is. We all have our biases. But if we can at least try to be aware of that and actively seek out information that might challenge our assumptions, then we're already doing a lot better. Okay, so next fable. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Now, what can that possibly teach us about leadership?
Well, according to this book, it's all about finding the right fit, like Goldilocks trying all the different porridge, chairs, beds, until she finds the one that's just right.
And how does that relate to leadership?
The idea is that it's similar to finding the right career path, or even the right leadership style. It's about trying different things, experimenting, and figuring out what really works for you, what energizes you, what feels right.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. So it's not just about blindly following someone else's idea of what success looks like or what kind of leader you should be.
Right. It's about self-awareness, knowing your own strengths, your values, your motivators, and being honest with yourself about what really matters to you.
Because what works for one person might be a total disaster for someone else. And that's okay. We all have our own unique path. And that path might change over time, too. It's not about finding one perfect thing and sticking with it forever.
Right. It's about being open to new experiences, to adapting as you grow and learn.
And taking responsibility for your choices.
Yeah.
Like Goldilocks did eventually apologize for breaking and entering, right?
Yeah, she did. which is more than you can say for some leaders.
Okay, so we've got the blind men and the elephant reminding us to seek out diverse perspectives. We've got Goldilocks and the three bears telling us to find our own unique fit. What's next?
All right, next up is the three little pigs.
Oh, those would be good.
Right. But seriously, the book uses this fable to talk about setting goals and building a solid foundation for success. The pig who builds his house out of brick, he's the one who's prepared when the wolf shows up.
So it's about planning ahead, putting in the work to create something strong and lasting, not just taking shortcuts or hoping for the best. Sounds like a pretty solid leadership lesson to me.
Yeah, and it's not just about having a vague idea of what you want to achieve. The book talks about setting smart goals.
Smart.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. It's a framework for setting goals that are actually, attainable and breaking those big goals down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay, I'm liking this. Smart goals. I might have to remember that one. But let's be real. Sometimes even with the best plans, things don't go smoothly.
True. And that's where having a good support system comes in. Like, just as the brick house pig helped out his brothers, having mentors, colleagues, friends, family who can offer guidance and encouragement, that can make all the difference.
Yeah, it's that whole it takes a village thing, right? We can't do it all alone.
Exactly. Okay, moving right along. The tortoise and the hare. This one's all about measuring success. Not comparing yourself to others, but focusing on your own progress.
Yeah, the slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. But what I found really interesting was this idea of a personal scorecard. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
So it's basically a way to track your progress and measure your success based on your own values and goals, not on what other people are doing or what society tells you should be doing. So let's say one of your values is creativity, right? You might set a goal on your scorecard to, I don't know, write a certain number of pages each day or learn a new artistic skill.
Okay, so it's a tool for staying focused on what truly matters to you and for making decisions that align with your values.
Exactly. And it's something that can evolve over time as you grow and your priorities change.
It makes me think of that quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy."
Oh, that's a good one. Because it's so easy to get caught up in what other people are doing, and then we start feeling inadequate or like we're not enough. But when you have your own personal scorecard, it's like, hey, I'm playing my own game here. I'm measuring myself against my own standards.
Right, focusing on running your own race. Okay, let's talk about the emperor's new clothes. That's a pretty wild story. A whole bunch of people pretending to see clothes that aren't even there just because they're afraid to speak up.
And the book uses this to talk about the importance of honest feedback.
Hmm.
In leadership, and really in any kind of relationship, being able to give and receive honest feedback is crucial.
But it's not always easy, is it? Like, people might be afraid to speak truth to power, or they might not want to hurt someone's feelings.
Right, and that's where this idea of the leadership shadow comes in. It's basically the impact that a leader's behavior and actions have on others, whether they realize it or not.
So if a leader is constantly interrupting people or dismissing their ideas, that creates an environment where people are less likely to speak up, right? Even if they have something important to say.
Exactly. And on the flip side, if a leader's open to feedback, actively seeks it out, and creates a safe space for people to share their honest thoughts and opinions, that can lead to so much growth and improvement.
So it's a two-way street. Leaders need to be able to give clear and constructive feedback, but they also need to be able to receive it gracefully without getting defensive.
Absolutely. And that's not always easy, but it's a skill that can be learned and developed over time. All right, what do we have next?
The Thirsty Crow. This one's all about overcoming limitations. Resourcefulness, persistence, not giving up when things get tough.
The crow who drops pebbles into the pitcher to raise the water level. Classic story. But how does this apply to leadership?
Well, the book talks about different types of limitations. There are false constraints, which are basically those limiting beliefs we have about ourselves, like I'm not creative enough or I'm not good at public speaking.
Oh yeah, I know those all too well.
Right. We all have them. Then there are proactive, creative constraints, which are actually good. These are intentional limitations that we put on ourselves to encourage creativity and innovation, like working with a tight deadline or a limited budget.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. And then there are the real constraints, the things we just can't change, like time or resources.
Right. So the key is to recognize which type of limitation you're dealing with and then figure out how to either overcome it or work around it.
Like the crow finding a creative solution to get that water.
Exactly. It's about having a growth mindset. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you say, I haven't figured it out yet.
I like that. I haven't figured it out yet. It leaves that door open, that possibility.
Right. Because limitations, especially those self-imposed ones, they can be really powerful, but we don't have to let them control us. Okay, moving on to another fable, The Frog and the Farmer. This one's a bit darker, but important nonetheless.
Yeah, the frog who slowly boils to death because he doesn't realize the water's getting hotter. A little grim, but I'm intrigued. What's the leadership connection?
It's about staying true to your values and recognizing when things are starting to go off track. Because sometimes those changes can be subtle, gradual, like the frog in the pot.
So it's a warning against complacency, getting so comfortable that we don't notice the danger signs.
Exactly. And the book talks about how our values act as an internal compass, guiding our decisions and actions. So if we're starting to feel that disconnect, that something's not quite right, we need to pay attention to those feelings.
Because those feelings are usually trying to tell us something important, aren't they?
They are. And it might be time to make a change. Maybe it's adjusting our approach. Maybe it's seeking out new opportunities. Maybe it's even leaving a situation that's no longer aligned with our values.
It's about being honest with ourselves
Hmm.
and having the courage to make those tough decisions, even if they're uncomfortable.
Right. Because if we compromise our values for too long, it can really take a toll. Okay, last but not least, we have Mulan.
Now that's a story I can get behind. A powerful woman who defies expectations and saves the day.
Right. And the book uses Mulan's story to talk about the importance of authenticity, of embracing your true self, even when it's difficult.
Because she initially hides who she is, right?
Yeah.
She pretends to be a man to join the army.
She does. But ultimately, it's by embracing her true identity and her unique strengths that she's able to succeed. And the book talks about how this idea of covering, of hiding parts of ourselves to fit in or avoid judgment, it can be really draining. It takes a lot of energy to keep up that facade.
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely been there. And it's not until we let go of that and allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are that we can really connect with others on a deeper level.
And that's when true leadership emerges. Because when we're being authentic, we inspire others to do the same. We create an environment of trust and acceptance, and that's where real magic happens.
I love that. Real magic. So I guess that's what all these fables are really pointing to, isn't it? The idea that true leadership starts with self-awareness, with understanding our own values, strengths, and experiences.
And then having the courage to be ourselves, to show up authentically, and to use our unique gifts to make a positive impact on the world.
And that journey, it's going to look different for everyone. It's not about following some cookie-cutter formula. It's about figuring out what works for you, what aligns with your values, and what makes you feel truly alive.
And maybe that path will take some unexpected turns, like the pro finding a creative way to get that water, or Mulan defying tradition to become a warrior.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. It's a journey of self-discovery, of growth, of constantly learning and evolving, and it's a journey that's open to all of us.
Well said, and I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to our listeners, we want to leave you with this question. Which of these fables really resonated with you? And what does that tell you about your own leadership journey, about where you are now and where you might want to go next?
Think about it, explore it, and see where it leads you. Because the world needs more authentic, courageous leaders, like now more than ever. And that could be you.
Till next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those stories coming.